Good morning. Today, Monday, April the 18th, 2022, we're going to begin our 15 minutes student presentation. The first presenter that I would like to invite to the presentation room is Muhri Iza. Do Muhri Iza in the classroom? Okay, if Muhri Iza is not in the classroom, then I would like to ask Melissa Damayanti to become the first presenter of today's session.
Yes, sir. I'm available and I share my screen first.
Okay, let me stop mine first.
Okay, thank you, sir. So could you see my slides, sir?
Yes.
Or thank you.
Okay. Okay, the time is 9 sharp. You may begin your presentation.
Okay. Okay. Wait. Good morning, everyone. Let me introduce myself. My name is Melissa Damayanti. I'm from Biophysics Research Group. First of all, I would like to thank Mr. Hari for being willing to give an advice to us for our improvement in making a good paper and a proper presentations. And today, what I'm going to share is about the influence of Montage references on the analysis of EEG measurements. Okay. Okay. So first we talk about the introduction. I would like to discuss about the brain. So why study about the brain is very interesting because the human brain is one of the most complex system on earth. We can imagine in our brain there are a lot of neurons. It might be 1 billion neurons and it connect each other and it gives some information to our body. And in our brains, there is an electrical activity, which if there is a disturbance in the transmissions, so it will be related to a neurological malfunctions or neurological disease. But are we just talking about the neurological disease? Actually not, because we can gain so much information from our brain, such as we can gain about how the perceptions affect our brain and how our decisions while we make a decisions it is affect the potentials of our brains and many more. So there is so much point that we can get from our brains. And where the electrical activities come from, actually it is coming from the moving ions the moving ions from one neurons to another neurons, and the ions that contribute to the currents flow in our brain is sodium and then potassium and chloride and also the protein inside our membrane. So once a given stimulus reach the potential threshold value, so the gate of the brain moving ions will be open and the moving ions will be flow into the membrane. So we can measure it in the scalp of EEG. So because of that much interesting information about the brain, we need to explore more insight from our brain. Okay. And then we talk about the EEG. If in the previous slide, I talk about the most complex system, and in this slide, I talk about the most popular technique that used to measure the EEG potential. It is EEG or electroencephalography is the most popular technique that used to study about the human dynamic brain. So a successful on utilizing EEG usually depends on a signal processing method such as time frequency analysis and also the influence of the reference. So human scalp EEG is widely used because due to its sensitivity and also it is non-invasive and the high time resolution. So much evidence showing that the reference scheme may affect the measurements. From the concept that we know, it is impossible for us to measure a potentials only with a given points or a given positions. So we always need a compare points or a compare position such as reference to calculate the potential difference between 2 points, 2 given points. So it also affect the EEG measurements. What the reference that we choose with an argument. Of course, the ideal reference is the zero potential reference. But in our brain, we cannot get the point that that has a 0 point potential because our complex brain activity. So the way we can the solution of that is we choose the minimum potential in the point, such as the center point or the ligmastoid in under the ear or the neck, under the what we call it under the neck, and averaging. So we need to investigate more about the influence of reference montage simultaneously to get a real EEG scalp recording. Okay, so we get to know the device that was first used by Hans Berger in 1924. It is EEG. So EEG is has several types of arrangement of electrode arrangement commonly used, such as 10 and 20 international arrangement and 10 and 5 arrangement and 10 arrangement. But the commonly used is the 10 and 20 international arrangement. And the arrangement, maybe I could say like the chosen positions of the electrode. So FP1, FP2, FZ, the position itself, we call the arrangement of electrode. And then and then the other side is the type of montage. So there are some types of EEG montage arrangement, like bipolar and then monopolar, and also Laplacian. But I don't attach the figure here because Laplacian is actually about the averaging reference. So the monopolar differential is when we have an active electrode here, and we reference it to A1 and A2. This is in earlobe, left earlobe and right earlobe. And then the bipolar is when we reference it into the neighbor potential electrode. Okay, so this is we could say as the configuration of potential measurements in EEG. Okay. Okay, so we move to the referential montage. So referential, also known as a common reference montage, it is using a single electrode for input 2 for all channels. So let's say this is a left hemisphere and a right hemisphere, and the A1 is the reference for the left hemisphere, and A2 is the reference for the right hemisphere. Pardon me. And this will be the reference for all electrode in the left hemisphere and in right hemisphere. So each channel represents the potential difference between certain location of electrode and the common single electrode as reference. And the advantage of referential montage are preservation of the shape and the amplitude of waveforms. So many configuration of referential montage, not only the A1 and A2, but also the CZ, FZ, PZ, and OZ. It also can be used as a reference. Okay, and then I think I need to talk about the brain region because I have mentioned it before. So what is FP1, FPZ, FP2, and so on? So basically, it based on the brain region and also the hemisphere. So the brain region, there are 4 types of lobes: frontal, parietal, occipital, and temporal, and then central. But central is small changes of the potential, because the active lobes is the fourth before I mentioned before. So and then the hemisphere left and right, the left hemisphere using the odd number, and the left hemisphere using, the right hemisphere using the even number, and the center using the Z letter. Okay, I have mentioned before about the potential calculation. So the time resolved values of an electroencephalographic recording calculated with the basic potential equation as follows here, which is the R reference points depends on the scheme that we use, such as average, ipsilateral earlobes, bipolar, and etc. Okay, and in the paper that I use as a reference, the method that they use is the head modeling using FEM and Brainstorm, such as a software that used for brain modeling and EEG topographical measurements. And after that, we set a standard EEG potential with infinity reference, the ideal potential measurements. And after that, we do some manipulations with online monopolar reference. Why this called online monopolar reference? Because we directly use the reference from active electrode. LE is left earlobes, and then FZ frontal, CZ, central, OZ occipital, and PZ. And then the offline reference is we do some processing before they use as the reference. LM link mastoid, the location is under the ear, and the AR or average reference. After that, we do some calculation of potential, and we calculate the relative error of online and offline reference to the infinity reference. Okay. I think I need to mention also about the EEG setup. So basically, the paper that I use in this study is not only compare about the montage, but also compare about the channel number and the electrode setup. So, but I just focus with the point A. This is the reference that used in this paper: FZ, CZ, PZ, and OZ, and then the left and right mastoid. And mastoid, the position is under the ear, and the link earlobe, the left earlobe. Okay, the channel, the number channel that used in this paper also 10, 16, even until 335. And this is the position of electrode, the variation of position, but I think we only need to focus with the 257. Okay, so based on the method and the EEG setup that they're used, the results is here. I attach the reference montage, the online monopolar, or I could say reference, and the offline monopolar, or I could say re-reference. So this is the relative error, and we could see that the offline monopolar has a smaller relative error to the infinity reference if we compare with the online monopolar. And here is the phenomena of the power spectral brain maps. And from this, we can conclude that even we varying the reference montage, so we never get the same power spectral result. So it will be changed from LA, FZ, even until the average reference. Okay, so monopolar reference recording are in large distortion of signal. So this means because it takes from the active electrode, and active electrode.
You have 1 minute to conclude your presentation.
Okay, and the re-reference should be used to mitigate the distortion effect of the measurements. Okay, so the conclusion of the presentation is average reference and rest. Rest means the infinity reference are two effective re-reference with superiorities to monopolar or linked mastoids reference for resting condition subject design. So this could be a recommendation to neuroscience research that average reference will be the best reference for general research in neuroscience. Okay, thank you. That's all from me. Thank you for listening to my speech. If you have any questions regarding my topic, I will be open to discuss to discuss with you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Questions from audience? Okay, Adrio.
Is the setup that or montage that you use, we can know how the wavelength of some part of brain, something like that, and if there is some kind of error or maybe this is in our brain, there will be some can I say,
pardon me, I couldn't hear. Maybe about brain disease, yeah.
I'm sorry, but your voice is soft. Okay, your voice is low, so we could not hear what you're asking.
Oh, sorry. How about this? How about this?
It's more clear, Andrio.
Okay. So about the disease, will there some kind of warning or something in our wavelength if there is a disease in our brain?
Okay, I get the point about how if there is a brain disease, so it is still useful, this configuration of montage. Maybe the question like that, but yeah, in the conclusion, I say that this is for resting condition subject. It means the subject is free from brain disease. They just only sit in resting conditions, but once they have such Alzheimer or maybe epileptic, that in some papers that I read, it used another configuration of montage. For epileptic, it used longitudinal bipolar, and for Alzheimer, it also used bipolar. So the for this research, maybe we will get to know more how if the montage is not fit for the brain conditions such as brain disease or mental illness. So we need to explore more about the research. But for this research is only talking about the resting condition of health or for health subject. Maybe that I can answer the other questions.
Okay, thank you. Because we have a tight schedule, we would like to thank Melissa Damayanti for her presentation. Now we are moving on to second topic, green synthesis of zinc oxide by Piper beetle extract. Salma Arida Mufliah.
Okay.
I would remind everybody that each speaker only have 12 minutes maximum to speak about their topic, and then 3 minutes for a Q&A session. Okay, Sama, the time is yours.
Could you hear my sound?
Yes.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. My name is Salma Aridam Priha. I'm from Department of Physics, Faculty of Mathematics and Natural Science, Institut Teknologi Bandung. In my 15-minute presentation, I will explain about green synthesis of zinc oxide by Piper Battle extract. So in my last presentation, I have explained about my background and aim of research. So I will explain that my third aim of research about applicate the zinc oxide nanoparticle in beauty product cannot be done in my research. So it will be done in another research. Okay, so I will explain about some basic theory that I use. It's about direct band gap and indirect band gap. So as you can see, for the direct band gap, if the momentum of electron and holes is the same in both the conduction band and the valence band, an electron can directly emit a photon. Meanwhile, in indirect band gap, a photon cannot be emitted because electron must pass through an intermediate state and transfer momentum due to crystal lattice. Okay, so since the characterization that I use in this research is TL spectroscopy and UVP spectroscopy, for UVP spectroscopy, I will use Tau plot, which the general equations is alpha H nu powered n and equals to K times H nu minus Eg, which alpha is absorption coefficient and H is Planck's constant, and nu is frequency in hertz, and K is energy independent constant, and Eg is optical band gap in electron volt, and N is nature of transmission. So N actually has 4 value. It's 2, 1 per 2, 1 per 3, and 2 per 3. But 1 per 3 and 2 per 3 is not allowed transmission. So I just show you the two allowed transmission. It is 2 for direct band gap material and 1 per 2 for indirect band gap material. In this research, I use zinc oxide, and zinc oxide has direct band gap material. So I will plot alpha H nu powered 2. So this is my extraction method. I have explained it before in my presentation, but I will explain it more specifically today. So firstly, I wash the Piper Battle leaf, and then I dry it, and then dehydrate it in oven in 100 degrees Celsius for 10 minutes, and then I powdered it using blender, and then I filter it. After that, I heat the water until it reaches 60 degrees Celsius, and after that, I dissolve the Piper Battle powder with Aqua DM in concentration 0.25% weight per volume and 0.5% weight per volume and 1% weight per volume and 2% weight per volume. After that, I water bath it for an hour and I cool it until it reach room temperature. After that, I filter it twice using qualitative paper. Okay, after that, I do the synthesis method. Firstly, I dissolve the precursor, it is zinc nitrate tetrahydrate, in extract solution, in extract to make the solution. After that, I will stir it in 300 RPM for 1 hour. And after that, I water bath it in 60 degrees Celsius for an hour, and then I variate it. The variation that I use is first, the concentration of extract, as I explained before, and the second one is variation of pH. For variation pH, I use to solution or to liquids. It is natrium hydroxide to increase the pH and the vinegar to decrease the pH. Okay, so this is the result for PL from PL spectroscopy. It is for 0.5% extract. Oh, here I use 0.01 molar for the precursor. So as we can see, it is intensity in y-axis and the wavelength in x-axis. So from the peak, we can see that the emission peak of the sample is between 450 until 500. So I do photoluminescence spectroscopy to study is there any blue shift or red shift in emission peak if I add some basic and acidic solution. Okay, and then it is the tau plot. The y-axis show alpha H nu square, and the x-axis show energy. Okay, in the sample, which is I use zinc nitrate and 0.25% extract. It is 3.36 electron volt. And then for the variation pH, here I add a drop of vinegar and a drop of natrium hydroxide. It has impact that in addition of 1 drop of acid solution, it decreased the energy gap to 3.33, and for the addition of basic solution, it increased the energy band gap to 3.48. And then this is for sample that use 0.5% extract. It has lower energy gap than before. It is just 2.72 electron volt. And then when I add some acid solution, the energy gap is increased to 3.24. And when I add some basic solution, the energy gap is 3.02 electron volt. Okay, and this is for 1% extract. I have 3.11 electron volt as energy gap. And then for the acidic solution, I have energy gap that is 3.13 electron volt. And for the addition of basic solution, I have 3.13 electron volt. And the last one is for 2% extract. I have 3.01 electron volt as energy gap. And then for the addition of acidic solution, I have 3.04 electron volt, and for the addition of basic is 3.00 electron volt. So as a summary, the pH variation can give different band gap energy, but I can't conclude it. Is it acidic will increase the pH, increase the band gap or decrease the band gap, since it gives us different result. In some sample, the addition of acidic can decrease the energy gap, but in some sample, the addition of acidic can increase the energy gap. So I will do more research and more synthesis method to get more sample, and I hope I can conclude is the addition of that basic and acidic solution is for increase the energy gap or to decrease the energy gap. And the second one is the extract concentration can give different band gap energy. And the third one is fiber battle extract can be used as a reductor agent to reduce the precursor from zinc nitrate tetrahydrate to become zinc oxide nanoparticle. Okay, I think that's all.
Okay, questions from the audience? Okay, Mulia, Sujiastuti.
Okay, could you hear my voice, sir?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, Salma, I want to ask you, why do you choose pH and concentration variation instead of another variation?
Okay, thank you, Mulia. So I choose this variation because it is easily to be done. Okay, first one, and why I vary the concentration of extract, because I want to know what the role of fiber battle extract and in this research. So I try to vary it from the concentration, and the pH I vary it because the pH can give direct influence on the band gap of materials.
Okay, Salma. Okay, nice, Salma. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Another questions? Okay, do you know what are the applications or the uses of zinc oxide?
Okay, I know it, sir.
Could you tell us one example or two?
Okay, so zinc oxide mostly used as a semiconductor or in electronic materials application, but in this research, my supervisor and I want to applicate in beauty products such as sun protection, like that, and moisturizer or lotion, like that, sir.
And if we apply zinc oxide in our skin, would we create some irritation or not? Or do you aware of that, or do you have information that you can share with us?
Okay, so basically the sun protection use zinc oxide or titanium dioxide. Zinc oxide is less toxic than titanium oxide, and it don't have any bad impact to our skin, but it can glow our skin since it reflect the light, like that, sir.
Okay, do we have questions from the audience? Okay, besides Piper beetle, do you aware that any type of leaves or any organic material usually used to synthesize zinc oxide? Do you aware any other plants or any other material that people usually use to extract zinc oxide?
There is a lot of research about this. My friend in this classroom, Zahro, it is also used the natural plant. She used cucumber as an extract, and in another research I have read some natural plant too, like orange skin, and then kiwi. I don't know what is the English for kiwi.
It's a kiwi fruit.
Kiwi. Yeah, kiwi fruit skin, and etc.
Okay. Okay. With that, we can conclude our Salma's presentation, and so that we can move on to the third presenter. Do we have Dara Rianti in the classroom?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Dara will talk about investigation of landslide-prone areas using ERT in Dalamwangi, Bandung.
Can you see my screen, sir?
Yes, you may begin.
Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Assalamualaikum.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Daryanti. Today, I will present about my research entitled Investigation of Landslide Prone Area using Venus-Lambercy configuration in Dalamwangi, Bandung. Landslide is a movement of soil mass or can be defined as the displacement of self-forming material, which can be in the form of native rock, withered soil, or embankment material, or a combination of this material moved down and out of the slope. Indonesian disaster information data on the official web of the National Disaster Management Agency recorded the incidence of landslide in 2021 as 1,321 cases. Several impacts caused by landslide are casualties, deaths, injuries, and losses. Material loss and damage to the environment and public facilities which also disrupt people's lives. Landslide can be caused by several reasons, including human and nature. One of the natural factors that influence landslide are soil layer, subsurface, and saturated soil. The subsurface is a water-resistant and slippery area which generally consists of a clay layer. The resistivity geoelectric method can produce an image of the subsurface rock layer based on the resistivity value of the rock type that constitute the layer that estimated to be the cause of landslide. The purpose of my research is first determine the subsurface structure in Dalamwangi using geoelectric method, and second analyze of landslide-prone area in Dalamwangi. What is a geoelectric method? Geoelectric method is one of the geophysical survey method to identify the surface of the ground using the properties of rock electricity. A resistivity geoelectrical survey is generally used for a shale exploration, approximately 500 meters below the surface. Geoelectric method works by injecting electrical current into the earth. Two current electrodes, C1 and C2, deliver the electric current, and two potential electrodes, P1 and P2, read the potential difference value after the current has passed through the rock. The four electrodes are plugged into the ground at a certain distance. The longer the distance between the current electrode, the deeper the flow of electric current can penetrate a deeper rock layer. With the flow of electric current, it will cause electrical voltage in the ground. Measurement for resistivity survey are made by the streaming current into the ground through two electrode type, potential electrode and current electrode, and measuring the resulting voltage difference across two potential electrode. In its most basic form, the resistivity meter has a current source and a voltage measurement circuit connected by cable to a minimum of 4 electrodes. In equation 1, express the potential difference between the P1 and P2 potential electrode caused by the current injection on the C1 and C2 electrode. Current and voltage measurement are then converted into a type resistance of clear value in equation 2. Electrode configuration is the rule of placing current and potential electrodes so as to obtain a certain pattern according to the objective to be achieved. That is a separate geometry factor for each electrode setup. In order to produce a steady resistivity value, the geometry factor is multiplied in the electrode arrangement. The electrode configuration that are often used are Wiener-Lambercy, pole-dipole, pole-pole, and dipole-dipole configuration. Wiener-Lambercy configuration is a configuration with a constant system of spacing rule with a node factor n, as this configuration is the comparison of the distance between C1, P1 or C2, P2 electrode with space between P1, P2. The geometry factor in this configuration is shown in equation 3. The work procedure used in this study is divided into four stages, which are the survey design stage, data acquisition, 2D data process, and data interpretation. The first stage determine the location of the measurement point, and then makes the track according to the desired target. In figure 6, the red circle indicates the research area. That is a description of the rock unit, namely QYD. In figure 7 shows that the rock in the study area is a sedimentary rock. Geoelectric data was collected in October and November 2019. Research location in Dalemwangi. The design of the research location is shown in figure 8. Tools that used in this research are resistivity meter type S-file multi-channel, 2 batteries with 12 volt, 24 pieces of electrode connecting cable, a hammer, a global positioning system, compass to determine the direction track, laptop, the meter to determine the location and distance between the electrode, and a resistive software. Data retrieval is done by using a resistivity meter type S5 multi-channel Wiener-Lambercy configuration with 92 meter of track length, and spacing of each electrode is 4 meter. The data obtained from data acquisition in the field area in the form of data file. The file contains the datum point, depth, electrode position, injected electric current value, measured voltage value, and data retrieval time. The model of the data acquisition was carried out with resistive software interpretation of data in the study based on the rock resistivity character in 2D model. The result obtained are in the form of subsurface structure consisting of depth and apparent resistivity value. In track 1 to track 4, 4 iterations were carried out with an average absolute error of 0.1468. In track 1 shows that there are rocks with apparent resistivity value between 30.7 to 3,358 ohmmeter with a depth of 19.2 meter. The rock type based on the resistive value are shale, sandstone, and limestone. In track 2 shows that there are rock with apparent resistive value between 29.7 to 2,245 ohmmeter with a depth of 12.7 meter. The rock type based on the resistive value are shale, sandstone, and limestone. In track 3 shows that there are rock with apparent resistive value between 21.7 to 1,909 ohmmeter with a depth of 12.7 meter. The rock type based on the resistive value are shale, sandstone, and limestone. And in track 4 shows that there are rock with apparent resistive value between 10.1 to 1,423 ohmmeter with a depth of 12.7 meter. The rock type based on the resistive value are shale, sandstone, and limestone. The slip surface is a rock that is impermeable or cannot store water, which means it has a small porosity and high resistivity. From the interpretation of rock on track 1 to track 4, identified as having 3 subsurface layers, namely shale, sandstone, and limestone. Sandstone can store water content, so that is possible to move easily. Meanwhile, limestone has small porosity, impermeability, and high resistivity. So it is estimated to be a slip subsurface, which is indicated by the letter C with resistivity value between 1,717 ohmmeter to 3,358 ohmmeter with a depth range between 9.95 meter to 19.2 meter. The black line in figure 9 to figure 12 is the boundary between the rock that moves easily and rock that is more stationary. Based on the result of the identification carried out in Dalamwangi, in general can be concluded as follows. First, the subsurface structure of the study area is identified as having three subsurface layer. Resistivity between 10.1 to 171 ohmmeter were identified as siltstone. Resistivity between 102 to 1,717 ohmmeter were identified as sandstone, and resistivity between 701 to 3,358 ohmmeter were identified as limestone. And second, based on the four trajectories of measurement in this study area, there are slip surface area that have the potential to landslide of the four trajectories, namely limestone with resistivity between 701 to 3,358 ohmmeter and a depth between 7.41 to 12.7 meter. That's all for today's presentation.
Okay, we have the first question from Sandy.
Okay, Dara, I want to ask about the configuration. The configuration used is the Wenner-Schlumberger configuration. Why did you choose that configuration?
I use configuration because Wenner-Schlumberger configuration also detect a greater concentration of high resistivity below the P1 and P2 electrode. It implies Wenner-Schlumberger configuration is sensitive to change in both horizontal and vertical. That's my reason.
Okay, thank you, Dara.
Okay, I hope that is answering Sandy's question. Moving on to second question from Maria.
Okay, thanks for the opportunity. For my question, if geoelectrical measurements are carried out in different weather, is there a significant change for the result? That's it. Thank you.
Okay. For my answer is it depends on the depth of the research area. If it's shallow, it might be have influential because there is a seepage from the surface. And in the research in my research area in Dalamwangi, the resulting depth is shallow, so that it can have an effect if the research is carried out in rainy weather.
Okay, thank you, Dara.
Okay, the third question is from Siti Zahra Tojana.
Okay, thank you. Hello, Dara. I want to ask something. In that your presentation, there is some word that I can't understand. I don't understand. It is about QID. Can you tell me the meaning of that? That means.
Here.
Yes. About.
So QID here depicts center from Mount Dano and Mount Tangkuban Perahu. In QID here are a brownish sandy tuff, very porous, and containing very coarse hornblende crystal. There is also red with lava, lapilli layers, and breccia. So QYD here show for sand to from mount.
QYD is basically a volcanic deposit from Mount Tangkuban Parahu millions years ago. It's basically a type of rock. The type of rock that is lies on the bottom of the ground is basically the first rock layer after the soil. Okay, after the topsoil, you have the rock layer, and the first rock layer that you found is that QYD rock. Okay, thank you, Dara, and also Siti, Sandy, and also Maria. Okay, moving on to the fourth presenter.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you, Dara, for your talk. The fourth presenter, I would like to invite Nita, also talking about geoelectrical method, but now it's applied for groundwater potential in Siak Regency.
Wait. Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good everyone, my name is Nita Juang, and today I will present of my research entitled Analysis of Groundwater Potential using 2D Geoelectric Method with Dipole-Dipole Configuration at Siak Regency, Riau Province. Okay. Water is a natural resource that has an important function for life. All living creatures need pure water. Can be seen in figure 1. Human definitely need pure water. That's the same thing with animals and the plant. The increasing population in Indonesia causes the need for clean water is increased. And while the water supply has decreased significantly, both in quality and the quantity. Thus, the groundwater exploration survey is proposed to overcome the scarcity issue of the clean water. In this study, I use a geoelectric method because first, water table is conductive and allow an electric current to flow to the ground so that it can be used to identify the percent of subsurface water. And then the geoelectric resistivity is one of the variables, which is the physical properties of the rock layer below the surface. Rock resistivity data can be used to develop a model of the subsurface and stratigraphic structure in terms of electrical properties. Then one commonly used this method because geoelectric method is efficient and economical to determine the groundwater. The working principle of geoelectric is to inject the electrical current into the earth. The electrode consists of two current electrode is C1 and C2 that deliver the electric current. And two potential electrode is P1 and P2, reading the potential difference value after the current through the rocks. The four electrodes are plunged into the ground at a certain distance. The longer the distance of the current electrode will cause the flow of electric current penetrate deeper rocks layers. With the flow of electric current, it will cause the electrical voltage in the ground. From the value of current and potential difference, the apparent resistivity value can be calculated with using equation one. With the value of K can be calculated with equation 2, where is K is geometry factor, I is current, delta V is potential difference, and rho A is apparent resistivity. In this study, I use a dipole-dipole configuration for electrode placement. In the dipole-dipole configuration, the distance between each pair of electrode is written by A. The distance between the midpoint is written by L, which is greater than A. Then distance A and C same with the distance B and D is L, and the distance A and D is L plus A. Distance C and D is L minus A. By entering this value, the resistivity measurement can be calculated using equation 3. This is a table of resistivity value of some materials. It can be seen that the resistivity value of the material varies depending on the types of the material. The table 2 is the absolute value of the subsurface resistivity used to identify the percent of groundwater from resistivity measurement. Can be seen freshwater resistivity is 10 until 200 ohmmeters, and porosity is 1 until 30%, and aquifer resistivity is 50 to 1000 ohmmeters. Okay, this is the location for the remaining located in the Rantau Bertuah village, Minas Sub district, Siak Regency. In the geological maps of the Pekanbaru, Sumatra, the location is studied is composed of formations such as gravel, sand, and clay. This overall research can be seen from this flow chart. The research was begun with literature review, and then this research used a Syscall multi-channel system, 40H channels with a dipole-dipole configuration with a length of 950 meters with electrode spacing is 10 meters. Then record the data using the software that has been installed on laptop. And then next overlap the data to adjust the total track length. If it match the length of the path, then process data with ResToDiff software to get the inversion result. If not, it will resume overlapping data. After processing data using ResToDiff, the next step is to interpretation and analysis of groundwater determination. Okay. This is the result of the data inversion. Figure HA is measurable apparent resistivity, figure HB is calculated apparent resistivity, and figure HC is modeled apparent resistivity. The method used for the inversion is the last square method. Based on the data resulting error value is 17.4%. Okay, this is based on figure 9, sorry. It can be seen that the grouping data based on rock resistivity value using inversion result of the ResToDiff software. This grouping resistivity value will be analyzed based on table 1 to determine of the type of subsurface layer. We will see on the next slide. Now, based on figure 9, it can be seen that the area has a resistivity tendency between 600 until 3,500 per meter. Along the track about 0 until 220 meters, and a depth of approximately 50 meters. Based on the resistivity value, table 1, it is known that the area consists of layer quartz sandstone containing free water. And then the track of about 220 until 420 and 20 meters. Value between depth is 50 meters. Has a tendency of resistive value between 15 until 50 ohmmeter, which is know that the area contains a layer of clay containing aquifer, while a depth approximation 40 meters has a tendency resistivity value between 100 until 300 ohmmeter. There is layers of sand and gravel. I think this other data have been seen full in this table. And next, this is a result of the interpretation of aquifer layer using the results of the inversion of two RescueDeep software and boreholes data. This interpretation will be analyzed based on table 2 to determine the types of subsurface layer. You will see on the next slide. Yeah, based on figure 10, the aquifer layer is found in a trajectory of about 100 until 300 meters at a depth 0.5 until 10 meters. Below the surface with the resistivity 10 until 30 ohmmeter. So that the position of the groundwater level is a depth of about 0.5 meters. This is accordance with the boreholes data, where in the boreholes data on the 250 meters, the track there is a groundwater level position with depth is 0.7 meters. And also the along track about 870 until 925 meters. There are aquifer with depth approximately 1 until 5 meters with resistivity value between 300 until 700 ohmmeter. The conclusion is the data inversion process using the RescueDeep software is done by reducing unnecessary data point. Then using the last square method, the subsurface inversion results are obtained based on the geoelectric measurement and layer interpretation. It is known that the position of the aquifer in Siak Regency Riau is located at a depth of approximately 0.5 until 10 meters with the groundwater level at a depth of 0.5 meters. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Questions for Nita? Okay, Desira.
Okay, hello Nita. So I have two questions. You mentioned earlier about measurable apparent resistivity and calculated apparent resistivity, right? So I want to ask, what is the difference between them? Oh yeah, and this slide, I guess there is an error of 17.4%. What does the error mean? Thank you. That's all.
Okay. In figure HA is a measurable apparent resistivity. Measured apparent resistivity is an image of the results of the measured data model in the search field. And figure B is a calculated apparent resistivity. Calculated apparent resistivity is a model that that result from calculation made by REST-to-diff software to approximate the model in the field. And this figure HC is model apparent resistivity is the result of the inversion of figure HB, where the error value is 17.4%. It display is the difference between figure B and figure A. To minimize this error is using last square method. Last square method is used by iterating the data to get the smallest error in order to obtain a subsurface section that is similar to the original data. In the REST-to-diff software, the last square inversion menu is available. We just need to click inversion and then select the last square inversion, and the software will automatically perform the inversion with the several iterations. So the errors, to minimize errors like that.
Okay, thank you, Nita. It's clear.
Thank you.
Yeah, and the next question is that how can we reduce the number of error to become less than 10%? That will be a next challenge. Okay, Jihan, do you have a quick question for Nita?
Yes, sir. Okay. I want to ask about Nita's presentation earlier. Besides the geoelectric method, is there any other method to determine the position of the groundwater? Thank you, Nita.
I have research on the internet and the several of papers that the most of the method used to find the groundwater is geoelectric method. But there are some who use the vertical electrical sounding method and self potential method. But I think the geoelectric method can be used in the research for groundwater because the method is economics and more effective for shallow exploration. At the depth of about 30 until 100 meters, 150 meters.
Okay, thank you for Nita and also the audience who asked about the topic. We will adjourn our presentation after we have 3 minutes break. We'll continue our presentation in 3 minutes from now. Okay, let's have a small break. Okay, welcome back to the first session of student 15-minute presentation. This is a day one of our 4-day scheduled meeting for 15-minute presentation. So now I would like to invite Lira to talk about parameters in coffee extraction and how science can make perfect caffeine.
Okay.
If you're a coffee person, your day probably won't start before you brew a morning cup of coffee or grab one at your favorite coffee shop. But did you know that behind the perfect coffee, there is a science behind it? My name is Lira Senja, and today I will discuss parameters in coffee extraction and how science can make the perfect caffeine. So coffee is a drink made from the roasted and ground seeds of a tropical plant. Coffee is a drink that is quite popular among the people. Indonesia itself is the fourth largest coffee producing country in the world. Coffee is very easy to find in Indonesia, ranging from low quality to the best quality. Luwak coffee, which is known as the most expensive coffee in the world, is also produced in Indonesia. Although there are many varieties of coffee around the world, most of the common and well-known types of coffee are Robusta and Arabica. Coffee is produced from the processing and extraction coffee beans. Broadly speaking, coffee bean processing consists of 3 stages, namely the roasting process, the grinding process, and the brewing process. Extraction occurs every time you brew coffee. When coffee meets water, it picks up the aroma, taste, and other substances in a cup of coffee. However, in brewing coffee, there are several other substances that we should control so that we will get the ideal extraction. Processing parameters and variables in the coffee extraction process contribute greatly to the flavor, quality, and consumer acceptance of the coffee extraction process. To achieve the ideal extraction when brewing coffee, we should at least pay attention to the following 3 things: grind size, time of extraction, and water temperature. The aim of this research is to study the effect of grain size, temperature, and time of the extraction of Arabica coffee. So for the basic theory, one of the compounds in coffee is caffeine. Caffeine is a compound of the xanthine alkaloid group and is believed by most people to fight drowsiness. In general, coffee is a nerve stimulant for the human body. On this basis, white coffee drinks or tea will relieve drowsiness and fight fatigue. The body will feel fitter after drinking a cup of coffee. According to the European Food Information Council and the International Coffee Organization, the recommended amount of coffee is within the safe limit is as much as 300 milligrams per day. This is equivalent to 5 cups of coffee or tea, 5 cups of tea or instant coffee, 3 cups of Robusta coffee, and 2 glasses of Arabica. Although in some studies, it is said that caffeine consumption of 1,000 milligrams a day is still safe, consumption should be limited to only 300 milligrams per day, considering the level of caffeine acceptance in the body is varies in each individual. So the coffee extraction is carried out by different methods to produce the brew. This process involves water absorption by the coffee grinds, mass transfer of soluble compounds from the ground coffee into the hot water, and separation of the resulting extract from solid coffee. During the coffee brewing, volatile and non-volatile flavor compounds are removed from the ground with hot water and distributed between water, oil, and solid phases. As shown in this figure, multiple variables affect the extraction process. Factors that affect the brewing process are the extraction time, temperature of the water, and the particle size. The extraction time will affect the content of dissolved materials, color intensity, and aroma. The longer the brewing, the chance of contact between brewing and coffee is longer so that the extraction process becomes more perfect. Likewise with the water temperature. The higher the water temperature or the brewing process, the ability of water to extract the chemical content contained in coffee will be higher. Studies have shown that using the increased ingredient temperature profiles between 88 to 93 degrees Celsius resulted in increased caffeine, a few acidic compounds, and chlorogenic extraction. Lastly, the particle size of the roast and coffee grounds determines the extraction rates of several chemical compounds, which define the final flavor of the coffee beverage. Grinding increases the extraction surface area, thereby increases the interface between water and coffee. So the method used in this research is a laboratory test with UV-Vis spectrophotometry method. The working principle of this method is that the amount of light absorbed by the solution is proportional to the concentration of contaminants in the solution. Spectrophotometry methods are expected to be used for the determination of caffeine in coffee because it is relatively fast, simple, and inexpensive. There are 3 things to do. First, in preparation of caffeine raw solution. Caffeine powder is weighed as much as 0.1 grams and then dissolved with ethanol in a measuring glass, then diluted. And then in preparation of working solution, caffeine working solution was prepared by diluting standard solution of 100 ppm. And lastly, for the determining of caffeine levels based on temperature and extraction time. First, 4 grams of sample was weighed, then added 30 milliliter of distilled water at a temperature of 50 degrees Celsius with variation extraction time 0 hour, 1 hour, 1.5 hour, 2 hour, and 4 hours. And then filtered and pipetted 10 milliliter of the filtrate. Next, add 4 milliliter of 0.01 molar hydrochloric acid and 1 milliliter of lead to acetate prehydrate. And then put 25 milliliter of the filtrate in a 50 milliliter volumetric glass. Add 0.3 milliliter of 3 milliliter sulfuric acid, then diluted. Then the absorbance of the filtrate was measured at a maximum wavelength of 275 nanometer. The same test was carried out at 70 degrees and 100 degrees Celsius. So for the result, measurement of standard solution will produce a standard curve, which is the standard of a particle sample that is used as a guide or a reference for that sample in the experiment. The purpose of making a standard curve is to determine the relationship between the concentration of the solution and its absorbance value so that the concentration of the sample can be known. So based on the coffee standard solution data, the regression curve and a linear equation used to determine the caffeine content, where Y is represent absorbance, while X represent concentration. So this is the results of caffeine content at temperatures 50 degrees Celsius, 70 degrees Celsius, and 100 degrees Celsius. As we can see, the lowest caffeine content occurred at 0 hour, while the highest caffeine content occurred at 1 hour of extraction time. At 50 degrees Celsius, the caffeine content was 0.0675 milligram per gram. At 70 degrees Celsius, the caffeine content was 0.0862 milligram per gram, and at 100 degrees Celsius, the caffeine content was 0.181 milligram per gram. Because high levels of caffeine are influenced by the length of time use of the brewing. This is because there is a relationship between the extraction time and the extraction compounds. The longer the extraction time, the more caffeine extracted. So from the result of this study, it can be concluded that the increase in caffeine content is influenced by temperature and time, because the higher the temperature will widen the distance between the molecules in coffee solid. The higher the diffusivity of the water solvent and the looseness of the molecules in the coffee solids, the water will be easier to penetrate the coffee solids so that the caffeine content in coffee is extracted perfectly. And in this experiment, the highest caffeine content is produced at a temperature of 100 degrees Celsius with an extraction time of 1 hour. Thank you.
Okay, questions from the audience. Okay, what do you think about the well-known rule of thumb when we are going to brew coffee? In terms of the temperature, usually people said that it is 80 degrees Celsius is the most appropriate time to brew coffee. But from this finding, what do you suggest?
If based on this experiment, the perfect caffeine is produced at 100 degrees Celsius. But in real life, that I'm brewing with 90 degree to 95 degrees Celsius. So the coffee is not too bitter, and I think it's just work for me is at 90 and 95 degrees Celsius.
And it is based on experience and also the study?
It is based on my experience and from other research.
Okay. But the rule of thumb of 80 degrees Celsius is basically the temperature that barista used to do, right, in the coffee shops, and then they're demanded to brew the coffee as soon as possible because the consumer needs it at the time. Okay, at the time. And so what this suggests to us is that probably some coffee manufacturer need to brew coffee with higher temperature and longer time.
It's if we use manual brew, like Vietnam drip or V60 coffee, it need to the time will be longer than the espresso machine. So I think the manual brew will need the more time and the higher temperature and than the espresso machine. So the espresso machine will be faster to give to the consumer. So if the consumer order the manual brew, so they should wait for their coffee. They should wait longer for their coffee. Yeah.
Okay, before I'm asking you more questions, I'm asking for the audience to ask for any question for Lyra regarding the topic.
Some questions.
Yes, please, Adrio.
Is my voice clear? Hello.
Sorry.
Test.
Yeah, I can hear you.
So the caffeine in the coffee are not just available at the moment, but the brewing is the process to let the caffeine out of the coffee. Is it correct?
Sorry, Adrio, I couldn't hear you clearly.
Oh, so the the brewing process of the coffee is the process to let the caffeine out of the coffee, right?
Yeah.
So, but how you make the solution, the caffeine solution for the what is that reference in UVC spectrometry, because you have to brew the coffee, right? So how you make the caffeine solution on for your reference, UVC reference?
So the question is why the variation is 1 hour, 1.5 hour, and 2 hour, like that?
No.
The reference. He's asking about the when you make comparison with your result, you have references, right? So how do you measure your reference?
Oh, so in my experience, the references, it will not be 0, 1, or 1.5 hour, but for example, if I make a V60 technique, it will be longer than 1 minute, but not, it will be longer than 2 minutes, but no longer under 2 minutes. So if we brew less than 2 minutes, it will make under extracted. And if we brew the extraction more than 2 minutes, it will be over extracted. So I think in this experiment is compatible with my real life experiment, I think. The references is from my manual experience.
Okay. I hope that is answering Adrio's question. And with time progressing, we'd like to applause to Lira for her presentation. Now we're moving on to the sixth presenter of today's session, which is Firas Anumila, talking about optimization design for high-speed transport.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, everyone. My name is Firas Anumila. Here I'm going to present you my study about optimization design of high-speed transport inspired by nature. Okay. The outline of this presentation is our background, basic theory, method, and result. Yeah, first, the background. Indonesia is an archipelagic country with a sea area of up to 77% of its total area and 17,000 islands, consists of Java, Sumatra, Papua, and many more. However, many areas in Indonesia are challenging to access because of water and various difficulties separate them. To overcome this problem, the government need transportation facility to that can remove those area who difficulties accessed by land. The second background, shipping industry has been a thriving industry since is the start of the Industrial Revolution, and now is categorized as one of the large-scale economics, and liner ship is facing an unexpected development on the size of the vessel, as it has increased year after year. And reducing the resistance may help to improving cruising speed and reduce fuel consumption as well. The purpose of this study is propose a much more economical and practical macro-scale modification to obtain a better ship cruising characteristic with a relative cheaper solution, and then gain fuel saving eventually in return. Okay, we move to the theory. The studies include the investigation of the drag reduction mechanism, which are inspired by nature, and drag reduction through the unique structure of the shark skin denticle, mimicking biological structure such as shark skin denticle is an example of how nature can inspire us to come up with idea that can provide similar function as them. And shark skin structure are rough and harsh, made up of dermal tooth-like denticle, which is called as minuscule placoid scales or denticles, and these denticles have pulp and cavity covered with enamel and vitrodentine. And then shark skin is designed with microstructural feature, and that effectively control occurring turbulent vortices, which leads to less momentum transfer and shear stress, and just reduce drag. Okay, the relationship between drag and the velocity of the body is commonly described by this equation, drag force, and CD is the drag coefficient of the object relative to its shape, structure, orientation, and size. Basically, there are 4 factors that affect drag force. These are velocity or speed, and then the size, density, and lastly viscosity. The relationship between 4 factors to determine the type of flow, either laminar or turbulent, which can calculate using the Reynolds number. The method used in this study is computational fluid dynamic, or CFD. CFD is a branch of fluid mechanism that use computer-based numerical analysis and algorithm to simulate, analyze, and solve problem in fluid flow, and then make it possible to use the equation governing fluid motion for a large of complex situation, providing both insight and quantitative prediction. Okay, then we can move to numerical simulation. Simulation we are done is on this study is 2 types on models. The first one is regular chess model, and the other one is PR model. Chess model is a container ship model, and the second one is a rectangular plane model, or PR model. The figure 7 in A, it is a parameter of Riblet structure of biometric shark skin, and the parameter is air radius, and then Riblet height and length, and distance between the Riblet. And the figure B show the 3D and frontal view of the proposed Riblet, and the RP model used to hydrodynamic effect of the implementation of biomimetic Riblet surface structure of shark skin. Based on this study, all the Riblet have the same function, different on its percentage of drag reduction due to the structure on of the Riblet geometry. Okay. Move to the flow field analysis on RP model. Velocity field. There are four figure. A, the cross section of velocity streamline, and then cross section plane RP, and then see the velocity curve of Riblet RP, and the last one is on the plane RP. The figure 8 show the velocity profile in cross section of the flow field over the plane and Riblet RP models, and the figure A and B show the vertical cross section of velocity streamline on the Riblet and plane of the RP models, and the second one is figure D is indicate that high velocity flow is acting above the surface, and figure C, the vortices are lifted of the surface due to longitudinal Riblet geometry, causing fluctuation inside Riblet fluid. Move to the wall shear stress. The change in the velocity distribution along the flow field leads to a reduction in wall shear stress as a velocity flow profile inside the valley of the Riblet RP model is lower. It indirectly reduces the shear stress, and this cause since the higher vortices are only experienced on the tip of the Riblet, this cause only small amount the high shear stress interaction with the plane as shown in figure 9. Reduction in wall shear stress can lead to the reduction drag experience by moving physical or animal. Every moving object experience drag force. This is the contour of wall shear stress on containing container ship without and with biomimetic shark skin. In figure,
you have 1 minute to conclude your presentation.
Okay. We can see in this figure, we can see and the right side is the plane shape, and the left side is Riblet with a biomimetical shark skin, and we can see the turbulent kinetic energy. The first we can see in the right side is the plane shape, and the left side is biomimetic. Okay, the kinetic energy size for rear and chest model with the biomimetic shark skin extend slightly longer and thinner compared to plain rear and chest model. There are also reduction in turbulent energy, both frontal and rear and ship model. And this is the conclusion of this study. Design modification with biomimetic shark skin has numerically proven that the biomimetic shark skin could improve to both model, CS model and RP model. And in terms of reduction in wall stress, shear stress, reduction in drag force, and improve fluid flow around the ship. And then the coefficient of drag reduction reduced by 3.75% and gave the reduction of 3.89% in drag force experienced by container ship model. And since the numerical study gave some encouraging result, we can improve by conducting experimental procedure for validation. Okay, thank you for your attention.
Okay, thank you, Firas. Question for Firas from the audience. Okay, Amanda.
Okay. I want to ask about the design. Are there any other animal or fish that can be used as a design reference?
Okay, thank you, Manda, for your question. The concept of optimization design using animal, we can see that many animals, but especially aquatic animals and the animal other of skin, shark skin, we can use or find sailfish. Sailfish can move at a speed of 110 kilometers per hour, and it can reduce the reduction resistance in fish can reach 5%. So the concept of optimization design using by nature, we can use other animal, which is sailfish, and based on sailfish, it can adaptation on the design to the seaplane float, and it can use to what is that? Wait a minute. And seaplane float, and it can be used by the government when they want to go to the other island when the island difficult to access with just plane or ship. That's it for me.
Okay, thank you for your answer.
Okay, Denny, you have question for Lira?
Okay.
I'm sorry, for yes, go ahead.
Okay, I have question. Why do you choose shark skin to design this to solve the problem?
Okay, thank you, Denny, for your question. why I choose shark skin to this study, because shark skin can have many other design, and there are so many. We can see the different between the plain and the reblaid or shark skin, and the shark skin can what is that? Shark skin. When I see the paper, it has many different shape, and it really amazed me, because I see maybe there are many animal can I use for this study, but the different of the shape itself can the design of the shark skin and different of many other design.
Well, it's not that particularly clear with the description, but nevertheless, since we are running out of time, and I think that Muhri Iza is not present in the classroom today, I would just like to conclude our first session of 15 minutes student presentation. We will continue the student presentation on Thursday for the second session, and the list of presenters that are going to talk about their topic will be uploaded on Thursday evening, and hope that everybody could check the flyer before attending the class. Okay, so I'm hoping that everybody is ready for their talk. And for those of you who are listed on Thursday session, be ready for the presentation. Okay, thank you for your cooperation, and we'll see you again on Thursday. Good morning.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.